Greetings, my name is Mars. I am host of the Watcher's Prophecy News, only on www.kdov.us, America's best Christian radio station. You can find us here every Saturday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Also on KDOV Radio, we have many other good hosts and many other shows for you to tune into. I'm glad that you're here with me tonight on the WPN. Tonight, more than any other night, I would ask for a humble from our audience. A humble prayer, a prayer for our nation, and a prayer for our leaders. You see, we're at a point past no return, where your gold and your silver won't help you as much as a can of green beans. We're the Watcher Society, and tonight I do have epic information for your mind. As I explained in our last show, that strong cities would deploy in 25 major cities, and the U.S. Army's internment program have now been completely synchronized. Our troops will indeed escort the UN for viability and trust but verify that the UN is only doing its job when it deploys 10,000 troops to these major cities. That's right. And worse, as this hostility grows, it gives Imam Obama a chance to also impose martial law. Trust me, it is going to be very ugly should that become the case. The UN's problem in getting things like the Small Arms Treaty and many other things that they specifically want enforced is that they get the major part of their funding from the United States, yet they're not even allowed to operate on our own borders. Now, with the signature of Obama on this executive order, things have changed. CIA has now given Imam Obama a briefing that included for sure the public anger that would arise among the patriot and patriot groups as soon as they learn they will not be so happy to see blue helmets patrolling our streets January 1. New orders deliberately now in place has about 590 UN troops arriving from member nations on private jets from UN staging areas in Paris, France. Folks, this is changing daily. This force so far, I estimate, has been processed. Some 690 of them, 100 more, have been housed at Kelly Air Force Base. And you thought all those pictures everyone's been showing of UN vehicles set up everywhere in private hangars, private bunkers, airports were all false? Well, I've got news for you. The blue bellies are coming. Well, I have a update. That's right. They will be needed soon and become popular to be here. That's right. Because what is about to befall our nation is a sudden sneak attack. I assure you this is true. From one or another superpower and an event that will take the lives of more people than all the world wars put together. The Bible has foretold this event. It is coming. But do not fear, because our Lord is with us. Imam Obama has now placed us with his last set of executive orders, if you're not blissfully aware, on a war footing right now with China and Russia both. It's true. The world has become a rotten apple, and the fruits thereof daily we see are nothing but bad items in the news. I'm sick and tired of all the bad news. Folks, there is good news out there. The good news of Jesus Christ. And his message is do not fear, because all of these things in prophecy must be fulfilled. And we who have believed upon his very name for our eternal salvation, will reign with him forever and ever without the establishment of such wicked tyranny as it will all be washed away. That is a promise from God. I want you to repeat after me. I am blessed in a cursed place. Come on, everyone. I am blessed in a cursed place. Thank you, Jesus, for only you rule the world. Once it was washed away, but by prophecy, this time by fire. And folks, it is definitely on the way. We are facing many, many threats. The news keeps growing fuller and fuller. It is as if more and more things are erupting. This even could be the great news from the north and the east. North Korea thinks, because China may face the U.S. fleet soon in a surface action over the disputed islands, that they also can threaten the United States and Japan in a move that has the UN, United Nations, in an uproar where every nation is now calling for the direct punishment on North Korea. Reuters News in Seoul, South Korea. North Korea launched a ballistic missile on Wednesday that landed in or near Japanese-controlled waters. For the first time, they're now saying it was Japanese-controlled waters. The latest in a series of launches by the isolated country in defiance of United Nations Security Council resolutions already. The last set of resolutions are force resolutions. There is no other. Be looking for this. The main body of the missile landed in Japan's economic exclusion zone. That's why I'm saying they've already claimed it. Japanese defense officials said escalating regional tensions that were already high after a series of missile launches this year and the decision by the United States to place a sophisticated anti-missile system in South Korea. North Korea has called it an act of war. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe described the launch as a grave threat to Japan and said Tokyo strongly protested. It is so far the strongest protest yet recorded at the United Nations. So far, today alone, it's went on 4.5 hours. Japan also said its self-defense force would remain on its highest alert in case of further launches. A U.S. State Department spokesman condemned the launch and said it would only increase the international community's resolve to counter North Korea's actions, even now, by force. U.S. Strategic Command said that it had detected 2 missiles, one of which it said exploded immediately after launch. So they're running about 50-50, half their stuff are duds. Missile that landed in the Sea of Japan was launched at about 7:50 in the morning, very early, Seoul time, 22:50 GMT Tuesday, from a region in South Hangwae province to the southwest of North Korea's capital, Pyongyang. South Korea's Office of the Joint Chiefs said something very startling in his statement as of next. He said he hoped that Japan would find this as unacceptable as we have, and that this would end shortly as joint U.S. forces, these huge drills upcoming, these are right around the corner, some 80,000 U.S. troops, will be massive on South Korean soil. North Korea says this drill is not a drill, but an invasion, and that we should and could, interesting, consider that their opening shot across the bow. It looks to me like soon Japan may be going to declare war. I've never seen a bigger stink at the United Nations before today in a very long while. It's just one of many hotspots. Remember, wars and rumors of wars, and the time for you to know what one hit you may be a moot point. But it is important that you keep up with the news current or be cut off by the blindness and totally overwhelmed. Got more rotten news. Stay tuned, because this is about to really overwhelm you, like I said. Now, as few are being told and are aware of, because there have been no other statements to the contrary, for one. But for two, I have news that the entrances and exits to the U.S. Air Base at Incirlik were closed by Turkish police Saturday, have not yet reopened. Hurriyet, one of Turkey's major newspapers, has reported the police came after many of the pictures even circulated on Twitter showing Turkish police sealing off the airbase. These have been deleted off Twitter. They were there. Incirlik is a critical U.S. airbase for air operations against the Islamic State and a NATO deterrent by treaty. We also house several U.S. nuclear weapons, about 90. 40 of them are assigned to Turkish forces. The other 50 are assigned to U.S. forces. Secular elements of the Turkish military attempted a coup against Ndodran July 15th, alleging the Turkish president was amassing too much power and becoming too Islamist. In other words, much of the corruption that Russia had been able to prove in the past with Turkish president consorting with ISIS has found out to be true, and the blackmail has now come home to roost. Ndodran publicly criticized Friday the head of U.S. military operations in the Middle East after he told an audience at the Aspen Foundation that many U.S. military allies in the Turkish military had been imprisoned. Many U.S. military allies in Turkish military, these are U.S. officers, had been imprisoned. After the failed coup, Turkey has cut power to Incirlik Air Base for nearly a week. Deeply worrying the U.S. military, Dr. Michael Rubin, a Middle East expert at the American Enterprises Institute, previously told the Daily Caller that the Turkish government's actions were akin to taking Incirlik Air Base hostage. Now, folks, when this is echoed by the Department of State, then I would believe it. In Adana, a new coup attempt against the possibility of getting the measures in the strategic point of entry and exit to Incirlik 10th Tanker Base Command were banned completely until further notice, and that's currently what's up on the big boards now. The issue here is the joint second-in-command of forces at the base has been arrested. General Beclair, and this gentleman, no doubt, under torture, has told Turkish forces loyal to Ndodran that the United States was behind the coup and that a second one was on the way. That's right. You heard that here first. So in a very brief time, about 7 hours, Sunday, it took the 10th Tanker Base Commander Belker, he's an older gentleman, 10 minutes to have all of the Tanker Base Command, police, MPs, and extraordinary, according to the Turkish government, extraordinary measures at all entries and exits for the coup in the first place. base while riot and anti-terrorism police waited at the entrance and exit with long-barreled weapons. Police also banned further notice entrance and exits to the base. In other words, you cannot arrive or depart. It also includes externally solicited of any high-ranking officials wishing to enter the base and cannot, nor anyone from the inside getting out. That is the current situation. Citizens staying in the lodgings in the Incirlik Air Base have come to enter, but have not been let in. Those that were out that day shopping, whatever, can't get back in. Now, the U.S. Army's Chief of Staff is coming there himself with a message, hopefully to improve the situation. Meanwhile, the U.S. Chief of General Staff, Joseph Dunford, is coming to Turkey Wednesday. Now, Dunford reportedly will visit American troops and will be found in bilateral talks with the Dodron over Incirlik Air Base during the visit. Now, let's read between the lines here. What you're not hearing is that, yes, you're blackmailing us. Yes, you've got us surrounded. You've got 7,000 versus our 1,500. The 101st Airborne, by the way, has been fully activated. They are on the highest alert right now. We can jump those guys in at any time. He's there to deliver Bummer's message. But I believe that Turkish Prime Minister for the European Affairs has since reported he has sought to spread more local disinformation to the media. Want you to get what this disinformation is so you do not get it confused with real information. Stating that the mission was just a safety inspection. Yes, we need 7,000 troops to conduct a safety inspection. It's just normal and it's controlled. That's what he said. It's normal and controlled. 7,000 worth. And there's no movement of our troops. That is a big fat lie. U.S. Joint Chief of Staff Chairman General Joseph Dunford is going to fly in there. He's already there now. And for an inspection of the airbase later today, they are going to let him in. He is going to firsthand see everything that's going on. He's going to report directly back to the president. And if they hinder him in any kind of way, it's going to be ugly. He's also expected to hold talks with the Turkish government there in Ankara. Last week, General Dunford labeled, this is his mindset right now, so listen to this. Last week, General Dunford labeled Turkish claims that a retired U.S. general was behind the coup as absolutely absurd. Well, I've got news. Apparently and suddenly the complete lockdown of the nukes there by the U.S. general in command was mistaken by the Turks. Now get this. Apparently the sudden and complete lockdown of the nuclear weapons there by U.S. general in command was mistaken by the Turks as a second coup attempt. Now the 1,500 troops there, American forces, Navy, Air Force, and Marines, are indeed surrounded, and no water is still being provided. Toilets are all backed up, and all the latrines. Though the power was turned on briefly for about 6 hours Saturday, it was then abruptly shut back off. It also appears the NATO provided ammo of about 40 of the veritable devices are not being handed back over to the Turks through the NATO treaty. And so they are Dodron is very upset about that right now, and they want them back. Well, why would the U.S. commander not be willing to hand those other 40 back? Kind of makes you wonder. Kind of makes you wonder why the base is surrounded. Kind of makes you wonder why it's 7,000 or more, including an armored battalion, against 1,500 basically airmen support people. All inputs and outputs to Incirlik Air Base, located in Adana, have been closed completely now, being reported by the Turkish Minister of European Affairs. Now, that's special because this gentleman is one of the few cabinet members that Indodran did not crucify in the purge. He's the Minister of European Affairs, apparently now a very high-ranking official. While these local newspapers speculate that a second coup attempt may even be underway. Well, not really that. What it is, I believe, is that U.S. commander locked down all the nukes, and then now the Turks want their 40 share back according to treaty, and U.S. commander says, no way, heck no. So now his superior officer is there, and we're about to see what's going to happen in Turkey. I would definitely keep your eyeballs peeled there. Incirlik Air Base located where it's at, very able to be hit by U.S. forces should we need to blow our own base up. I would hate that it would ever come to that. Wouldn't think so. Massive presence of these armed police now even on the runways, supported by heavy vehicles, and to me it is calling into question the Turkish government's official line that the lockdown at the base is merely a safety inspection. Folks, I just cannot buy that. Can't buy that. Situation continues to develop in front of NATO's Incirlik Air Base as more now, this is hourly, this is last hour, have been dispatched to surround and block access to the critical military facility that is the heart of the Defense Alliance air campaign to combat terror in Syria and the massive network of computers therein. This is growing bad news. I have no idea what the U.S. commander is going to see there or what he will report back to Obama, but I guarantee you it is not going to be good. You can see the world tyranny and the New World Order's propagation of events unfolding everywhere, all over the globe. Even in Venezuela, government officials, while they're not blaming everything yet on their all-purpose scapegoat, the CIA, for all of their food shortages, they do claim that all of their problems right now stem from the fact that a barrel of oil used to sell for 100, now goes for less than 40. Actually, it was 32, shot back up, and it's fluctuating. It's really cheap at the pump right now. That is true. But even with the lower prices that affect every oil-producing country that completely relies its entire economy on these wells, you don't see food riots in Saudi Arabia. You're sure seeing them in Venezuela, and it is bloodshed extraordinaire. Venezuela, milk, eggs, flour, rice, chicken, beef. If it can be eaten, it's vanished completely from the country supermarkets. Nothing there. People are eating dogs and cats, and there are reports that they're even eating each other. That's right. Jeffrey Dahmer syndrome, zombies. It's there. It's in Venezuela. Remember what the Bible says, a man will do anything to eat. Venezuela has the worst food crisis on the planet right now. Never in the history of the world has a nation literally starved to death. Children are now dropping there like flies. It's done to them intentionally. They are now taking actions that would look very familiar to people who have closely followed Obama in Executive Order 13603. Folks, this is very critical because Venezuela, in my opinion, has been computer modeled and was the very philosophy that Bernie Sanders, should he have gotten the nomination, wanted to inflict upon the American people, the Venezuela-style economy, so says he. And Hillary, being a Democrat, but also a communist, because that is proven. Just so much evidence, folks. You can say whatever you want to say. If you want me to prove it, email me. I'll send you all the proof I have. Hillary Rodham Clinton is a communist. And if she is allowed to control our nation, including our military, the first 2 weeks of her presidency, you will see not only strong cities deploy, but the reason for strong cities deploying, which is going to be a catastrophic nuclear war. Go ahead and elect Hillary. Out of ignorance, you are voting to push the button. I am that sincere. Folks, we could even, it's like a never-ending record player. I don't even know where it starts, where it ends. We're almost in the twilight zone. We could even be about to go to war with China. Got some great news there. Situation there is almost out of complete control. Now, with an entire subfleet of U.S. warships, 8 to be exact, being sent near the war games going on there now by China to demonstrate their ownership thereof. They want those islands, and China is going to keep them. U.S. is now sending warships. Now, prudent man, Bible says, perceives the difficulties ahead and prepares for them. Simpleton goes blindly on and suffers the consequences. It's Proverbs 22:3. When the TV or radio program switches abruptly to a terse announcement saying, we interrupt this program for this special bulletin, your kids look up to you with questioning wide eyes and eager for assurances, when then that you are confidently ready for them with your own plan of action and ready to go. That's what this is all about, our children. You know, we could very easily have this war in many fronts. So much is going on. And this war could just as easily be with China, if not Russia. The Bible makes it clear that this time it is coming, that in a day in which these weapons will be used, crystal clear, in a very fast, furious, short-lived, horrible, all-out nuclear exchange. That is coming. And if you think nuclear war may not be survivable, you know, folks, only predictions exist. Some people say yes, other people say no. I say that knowledge is the key. That you need to be prepared regardless of whatever situation arises. You should keep in mind that the modern thermonuclear weapons are many hundreds, and in the case of the largest weapons, several thousand times more powerful than the bombs dropped on Hiroshima. We really don't fully understand what will happen when thousands of these weapons are detonated at the same time. For some, especially in a large population centers, it may seem like an eternity or a completely futile endeavor. If it has even survived at all, it will only be by those who are mentally and logistically prepared for such an event, and those that live in my opinion, in better remote areas that do not have much strategic significance. The Chinese defense minister has warned the tense situation. He did. He called it a tense situation. I love their Diplospeak. Yeah, you gotta look this up. Look up Google Diplospeak. It's a whole dictionary of words where the media will report one thing, but when you translate some of this stuff into Diplospeak, you understand what they're really saying. Yes, we're going to do this. No, we're not going to do that. This tense situation in South China Sea poses a threat of a direct confrontation and has called on the military, police, and general population to be ready to defend the country's territorial integrity. Now listen to this, folks. Chang Wuquang made the statement while inspecting military installation in China's eastern coastal Zhejiang province. State news agency Exxon reported without giving the timing of the comments. Seriousness of the national security situation could be recognized, particularly when it comes to threats posed at sea. Now on Diplospeak, folks, what he's saying is there's a threat, it's at sea, we're aware of it, we know what's going down, we know your ships are in the area, we know that we're having a huge war game right now. We'll get to that in a minute. Chinese military, law enforcement, citizens must be ready, he added, for mobilization in the event of a people's war at sea, he added. Really? We must be ready for a mobilization in the event of a people's war at sea. General public should be educated about national defense issues because national sovereignty and territorial integrity are at risk, according to the minister. Chang's statement comes amidst unprecedented tensions over the disputed islands in the South China Sea and the fact that the United States will not leave them alone. We just won't leave them alone. Seems that Beijing has been building airstrips, even with bombers on them, and are landing munitions and many other things to make a military installation on the so-called reclaimed reefs. They're reclaiming them, all right, bringing in sand by the shipload. And islands in waters also claimed by a number of other Asian states. Now, folks, you might ask, is war inevitable in the South China Sea now that their own Minister of Defense has said, be ready for a war at sea? U.S. Navy has dispatched warships and military planes to the immediate proximity of the disputed islands. That's USA Today. Folks, I'm not making this up. It's going on. Now claiming it has done so to ensure the principles of freedom. Remember Vietnam? Yeah, we got to institute the principles of freedom on your nation. It's freedom of navigation in international waters. Washington has also been involved in a number of military drills in the region. Now, Beijing has slammed the naval and aerial displays by U.S. as provocations and reinforced the installation of the islands with anti-ship missiles and air defense complexes and very sophisticated long-range radar. This radar, the XM73 radar, has limited stealth abilities and can maybe see stealth aircraft. It is very complex radar that they've moved in there, and you would not think such would be needed just for air traffic control. China's 2.3 million strong People's Liberation Army, the PLA, is fully confident, according to this minister, and capable of addressing various security threats and provocations. Chang said last Wednesday while addressing a summit, this is at yet another place, it was dedicated to the 89th anniversary of the PLA's founding, said that we will no longer tolerate any interference in South China Sea. Any interference. Okay, any. Okay, you got that already. That's coming from, number 2 or 3, Chinese government. Now, I've got an update for you. This may make you gasp some, but this is why you listen to me, because I get all the good stuff. This may shock you some, but now, and this has not been released yet, folks, I'm releasing this now, but in a undefined exclusion zone, mines, that's right, mines, have been employed and dropped by China either in relation to the exercise or for them to be in place should a war develop. Now, these mines are a direct violation of law, and the U.S. will not stand for them even for 1 minute. Now, I predict that the worst part of this has not even been seen yet. You heard it here first, right here. China is mining part of that area. That's right. Don't think that a few pesky mines will hinder any shipping. Now, China's ruler Tuesday said supremely from his high horse that China would exert complete authority over their exclusion zone. Now, this goes and echoes everything coming out of their little mouthpiece. And also on Tuesday, China's Supreme Court issued a regulation. So now all 3 branches of government. So you can see where this is going. Reaffirming the jurisdiction of national courts over the country's own territory. In other words, it's our territory. Our own courts will decide that it's our territory, and they have. So it's our territory regardless of whatever the world body says. And I want you to know also, breaking here, that there is a lawsuit being introduced at The Hague, at the World Court, over the disputes, and this is between the Philippines and China. That particular area has turned legal, primarily because I'm sure the Philippines don't believe they could whip China all by themselves. This zone includes a 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone. It's pretty vast. It's warned its citizens and foreigners alike of criminal liability for any violations such as illegal fishing or trespass of any kind, or even killing endangered wildlife within the zone. Right now, they have done everything but prohibit ships from crossing the zone, and now with these mines in place, oh goodness. China said the People's Court will actively and exercise jurisdiction over Chinese territorial waters and support administrative departments to legally perform maritime management duties, including referring these issues to their Navy. Well, we know that, being is that they've got 27 ships there right now and nuclear firepower. Said they want to equally protect the legal rights of the Chinese and foreign parties involved when they have basically taken over this area. And now, having mined it, like I said earlier, this is not really going to help safeguard Chinese territorial sovereignty or even their maritime interest. What it's going to do instead is backfire upon them. The United States will call it a big-time provocation, and I believe that this will link into the mainstream news media for long. Any fishing boats refusing to leave Chinese water are caught fishing illegally. Now, this is where they're now applying this to boats. They're saying that even if you remotely resemble a fishing boat, okay, cannot traverse these waters. and you cannot go there without a permit more than once a year, or you will be subject to a fine, while the crew could be given a prison term of up to a year. That's what their court just passed Tuesday. Now, foreigners who feel their rights have been violated by the Chinese authorities are free to deliver their claims to Chinese court, said the court, and said that all claims would be looked at. Right. That's why they've got one of the largest naval fleets ever in the world assembled at these little islands right now. The United States has got a small little fleet headed there now, including an aircraft carrier. And now Chinese foreign minister, their defense minister as well, has suggested that there is about to be war. You know, last week I mentioned that China had a lot of displeasure with the International Tribunal ruling on the East China Sea controversy, and that as of this week they are holding a large live ammunition drill in the sea, and it is involving literally hundreds of ships and submarines, and all three fleets of the People's Liberation Army. 27 of these would be considered dreadnoughts, going by the reports out of Jane's. The exercise is something that you might just overlook in the news, but they've already mobilized so many forces and even fighter planes that they've landed on the islands that should a conflict erupt, according to the China Times, that they would surely win. And now they've mined the area. Well, Russian Times is reporting that these Chinese war games right now are being divided into red and blue teams, and the blue team is being given American surface speaking radio officers and American surface codes. In other words, their little war game that they're playing with each other, they've given their blue side, made it to look identical to the Americans, and if that isn't a message, I don't know what is. The red side joint assault group protected skills in attacking the blue side, while the blue team had to use missiles and torpedoes to counteract the enemy. That's exactly what China says that it is going to do. But now, with the event of these mines, you wonder what the U.S. surface fleet will do when it arrives tomorrow. China's defense ministry called the drills routine. Don't worry, they're just routine. You remember that's what they said in Turkey surrounding the airbase. It's only routine and not directed against any third party. Drills, however, come at a time of heightened tensions in the Middle East and in Middle Asia. I guess that's their own little typo. We'll have to thank Reuters for that. After a international arbitration tribunal last month rejected the Chinese territorial claims to the South China Sea. Now, this ruling, like I said, you probably skipped over it in the news. This ruling, China has completely scoffed at. Now their ministers are preparing for war. So, Chinese government, including their highest leader, President Xi, has called the Hague ruling waste paper. There's more. That was enough on China. But you see, it's going on there too. It's never ending. We've got more. In even yet another manifestation of Bible precepts interacting with modern life, there seems to be a private foundation representing the descendants of King David. That's right. who have recently launched a lawsuit into the highest court of land in Israel to make a legal claim to the ownership of the Temple Mount. Now, what's so funny about this is, so far, almost every single one of the judges have come out and said they were for this. Should be very interesting on how this ruling goes. While their claim is legal, sound, and verifiable, you hear, even the court admits that's legal, sound, and verifiable. You just imagine what the Arabs are going to do once an Israeli court says, yes, the heirs of King David now own the Temple Mount. Imagine what that's going to do. That's not going to start the second or third or fourth or fifth infidada. Take significant political hurdles to overcome any type of manipulation that other officials have swayed versus this little lawsuit. And so far, it has not mattered. It seems to be going right through the system. One of the suit's beneficiaries, who claims to be a close descendant from the Davidic dynasty, is ready for a legal battle, but believes optimistically that things will work out well. I believe they will as well, because the Israeli press is beaming on this, and they want this to happen. They want the heirs of King David to have the Temple Mount back, because then it will be additional firepower for them to use against the Arabs and their grabbing of the Golan in Jerusalem. More political weight, more political pressure. Story has simple beginnings. In 2004, Dr. Boris Fishman, then a recent immigrant to Israel from America, went to tour the tomb of Samuel the prophet north of Jerusalem, which led to chance a meeting with Israeli Arbuk, the owner of a nearby farm. Inspired by the biblical roots of the setting, they began to discuss the link between the house of David and the Temple Mount. They noted that King David purchased the site originally for the simple altar. It's written in the Bible. So David wrought the threshing floor and the oxen for 50 shekels of silver, and David built there an altar into Hashem and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. It's in 2 Samuel 24, 24, and 25. The pair concluded that since the site was originally the property of King David, and no one else has legally purchased it, and that it is not state-owned land. Can you believe that? Temple Mount's not state-owned land. And in the interim, the Temple Mount should have been passed along as an inheritance all of this time to his male descendants. As a result of this discussion, Dr. Fisherman hit upon the idea of creating a legal entity to represent all of the descendants of King David, whom he personally went around looking for, many having been DNA tested to further their court backings. Anyone who could prove male linkage to the house of David of a substantial amount of blood in their bloodline would have a legal claim to inherit the temple as property. Dr. Fishman established a foundation to advance the claim of the Temple Mount ownership by King David's descendants, naming it Kansferi Nashlim Elman Halaraka, Wings of Eagles for the Assembly. At the present, the legal entity created by Dr. Fishman represents two claimants who have genealogical records documenting their linkage back to the time of King David through these very male descendants. Now, this genealogy from the royal house of David can be traced through oral tradition, rabbinic sources, scribes, historical data, and extensive research. Several families claim descent and were tested and contained well over 50% of King David's DNA. Now, I don't know where they got King David's DNA at, but apparently they've had it for a while. Now, this inheritance, father to son, in a direct line, most notably the Dan, Sheketel, and Charlotte Don Yeshia families, the descendants of King David, are believed to have settled in Pelos, Syria. So most claimants trace their linkage back to that city. That was before the hardcore Syrians literally took the city over. Was kind of like a home away for the Jews in Syria. An online project has been set up to maintain a list of these claimants. Some even come from Africa. That's right. Any other male descendants of King David who wish to join the suit can do so at any time, as it is now open. Now, I have some breaking news on this. I've done a little bit of homework on this because the Prime Minister himself and many others are supporting this lawsuit. This breaking news: Israel has asked the foundation's lawyer, Barak Ben Yosef, about the strength of their case. And he says this in a quote, and we don't have much from him, but he says, surprisingly, the Temple Mount is not listed in Israel Land Authority. In other words, it's not state-owned land. And the High Court will agree with that. Case is very strong. Ben Yosef is referring to an aspect of land ownership in Israel where less than 10% of the land in Israel is privately owned. Over 90% of the property in Israel is owned by the Israeli government. Over 90%. Via the Jewish National Fund, JNF, and the Israeli Lands Administration. When land is purchased in Israel, it must be registered with these authorities and is essentially a long-term lease. Since Temple Mount was never registered under any of these authorities, it can be considered privately owned. You heard it here first. Now, folks, the fact that it's under the authority of anybody else, even Jordan, is not a legal claim to ownership. It is a contemporary condition based upon power and not a valid legal claim. Ben Yosef said, you would think that the state of Israel owns it, but surprisingly, it does not. They have not even registered it. They clearly have not even expressed any desire in its ownership. They don't have any interest in owning it. Now, their court's going to go with this, and what that's going to mean is understand that this gentleman is also the gentleman that made sure 5 years ago that every single implement of the temple, including every single brick, every single fork, knife, spoon, altar device, railings, even the Holy of Holy spots, the place for the Ark of the Covenant, and everything else was already manufactured, done in the finest gold. That's all been done. Now, should the court pass this, will be very interesting. Yosef goes on, and I want to make this point before we get on to anything else, because I want you to understand that if this does pass the High Court's billing, the people that claim leakage to King David will have not just a legal claim, but could kick Arabs off the entire lot of land and not legally allow them back on as in any place of private property. This will immediately anger many Arab states, Palestinians, and cause such a massive disorder that you have not seen the likes of. And that's coming. That's around the corner. Now, the Prime Minister's weighed in on this, and he said that a militant takeover of the Temple Mount is currently not his goal. Well then, Mr. Prime Minister, what is your goal? Don't have to establish that we'll legally own the land in order to bring the Messiah. We also have to deal with world opinion and their opinion of the Israeli government in a realistic manner, he said. In other words, that the government didn't have to prove that they own the land in order to bring the Messiah. It's from the Prime Minister's own mouth. World opinion contradicts his claim. UNESCO has denied any historical Jewish ties to the site. Dalen felt that the obstacle preventing the Jews from taking their rightful place on the Temple Mount had little to do with jurisdiction and everything to do with claims of father to son inheritance all the way from King David. Now, I have an update on this story, yet another update. This now is scheduled for a vote in 30 days. So I guarantee you, you're going to see an Arab uprising. It's going to happen in Gaza. It's going to happen in the West Bank. You're going to see the Palestinians rise up. Al-Nusra, Hezbollah, Hamas, all the little goons, all the little rags are going to start jumping up and down at Israel simply because this is going to be handed to the descendants, probably just a small group, 15 or 20, so that they will have some kind of vote-sharing, decision-making process over the Temple Mount. Could be as few as 12, wouldn't that be ironic? The High Court has, one of the High Court judges has linked something this last Friday, and it makes me believe with all my heart that this is going to pass. He says, who is going to judge this? Who can I make even my claim to? Even if I wanted to make this claim, the High Court of Israel doesn't want to hear this. The state of Israel doesn't want to hear this. The world is willing to lie about it. My entire ancestry has been wronged, but there is no court that I can take this to but my own thinking. Now, basically, I believe what he's saying here is that he feels that this decision should be made by God, and now it's on him. And he's only one of the judges, but I know which way he's leaning. And it will be remarkable when the Temple Mount is returned to the descendants of David. What do you think that will mean, ladies and gentlemen, in Bible prophecy? What do you think that'll mean? We want you to tune in every week night, Saturday. Every Saturday night, not a weeknight, every Saturday night, and come hear our program. On the weeknights, you can hear all these other fantastic shows that K-Dub has. Joe Mayo's rock show that comes on before mine. Joe is playing some awesome music, folks. You need to tune in and listen to this guy's show. Pastor Harden has a show. Jerry Harden has a devotional that you should hear. Pastor Greg, many others. You need to tune in to KW. Check out our schedule. Go there and see what we do and why we are the best Christian radio station in America. Yes, I'm getting a little tired. It's near the end of my broadcast, and I've given you all my breaking news, including the fact that China is now mining lots of the South China Sea. It's going to go over really well. And the things that are going on at the Turkish Air Base, many other hot spots around the world, want you to come back and pay very close attention to the world events and affairs. If you know Jesus Christ as your personal Savior, you will avoid many of these things. I wish you well, my friends. Good luck and good night until we meet again.